Welcome to Unholy Inquiry, where each tale leads you deeper into a labyrinth of mystery waiting to be uncovered. This time, join us as we delve into Hercule Poirot and the affair at Thornbridge Manor, a fan-crafted story that pays homage to the genius and sophistication of Agatha Christie's iconic detective Hercule Poirot. We are thrilled to have you with us on this captivating journey. Share your thoughts, let us know where you're tuning in from, and if you spot any details we missed, your feedback is invaluable. Together, let's continue to shape even more thrilling enigmas. Chapter 1. The Silence of Thornbridge Manor. The clock's hands trembled toward midnight, its echoing chime a solemn prelude to the horror that would unfurl that night. Outside, the rain fell in relentless sheets, drumming against the slate roof of Thornbridge Manor, a magnificent yet foreboding structure that loomed over the mist-shrouded grounds. Thunder rumbled menacingly in the distance, lending an ominous air to an already forbidding evening. Within its elegantly furnished walls, a small group of invited guests attempted to mask their unease with polite conversation, though every strained smile belied the anxiety that tightened their chests. Suddenly, a scream pierced the heavy air, sharp and visceral, shattering the fragile veil of civility that held the party together. It emanated from the direction of the study, a sealed fortress of dark mahogany and velvet. The guests exchanged terror-stricken glances. An unspoken agreement seemed to pull them toward the source of the chilling sound. They propelled one another with trembling hands until they emerged at the threshold of the study, breathlessly hesitant. Inside, the scene was harrowing. Lord Wentworth lay sprawled across the plush black-and-gold carpet, his eyes wide open, shocked into an eternity of stillness. A deep crimson stain blossomed on his impeccably tailored waistcoat, stark against the elegance of his attire. The door to the study stood unyielding, locked from the inside. The guests surged forward, but it was Mrs. Caldwell, his longtime housekeeper, whose stuttered gasp cut through the stunned silence. "Oh, Lord Wentworth," she lamented, falling to her knees beside the extraordinary, lifeless form. What could have happened? As the commotion continued to escalate, retired Detective Hercule Poirot, who had been present primarily as a friend of the host, stepped forward. With his customary aplomb and a steady gaze, he surveyed the chaotic scene. The dim light from the brass chandelier cast eerie shadows across the room, rendering the opulent furnishings spectral. He approached the body with a hesitant yet resolute determination, kneeling to inspect Wentworth's hand, which clutched a torn piece of paper. "What is this?" Poirot murmured, his fingers delicately prying open Lord Wentworth's palm. The guests, blinking back their shock, strained to decipher the enigma. They were all too familiar with Poirot's legend, a man of diminutive stature matched only by his enormous intellect. By all accounts, he was healthy, no? Poirot mused, training his sharp eyes on the largest member of the group, Colonel Smith, a friend of Wentworth's since their Oxford days. Yet here he lies, lifeless, and why a piece of paper clutched in death? Colonel Smith, tousled and pale, shifted uncomfortably. "What do you imply? That someone killed him?" "Ah, Georges," Poirot said, addressing one of the estate's servants who had just trembled into the room. "What can you tell me of the circumstances? Was there anyone else in this room prior to the pandemonium?" Georges stammered, "No, Monsieur Poirot. I assure you, I was polishing the silver in the dining hall. The sound of the scream, I rushed in as soon as I heard it. Poirot nodded thoughtfully, taking in every word. The door being locked from the inside was a riddle indeed. The only other avenue of inquiry was a window that overlooked the now torrential downpour. "My friends," Poirot announced, "as distressing as this moment is, the answer lies here, hiding amongst us. Each of you has a connection to Lord Wentworth, a motive perhaps in your heart. Let us consider the implications of the torn note." The others shifted in place, some visibly more intrigued than alarmed. Miss Clara Fields, a family friend with keen brown eyes and an air of restless energy, stepped forward. "I saw him just before it happened. He was agitated, Poirot, chasing knowledge that was evidently elusive. I wondered if it was about the family fortune." "Fortune indeed," murmured Poirot, his mind bustling with theories. "That seems a pertinent motive. But alas, we must delve deeper. Who among you knew of his vulnerabilities?" A murmur rippled through the group. Colonel Smith exchanged a glance with Miss Fields, a shared moment of something undisciplined and primal. Poirot took note of their swift glance. The unspoken communication that echoed between their troubled gazes suggested secrets pressed against the fabric of propriety. Poirot leaned in closer, locking eyes with the colonel. "Tell me then, what was this agitation concerning?" "Nothing," he flatly asserted, feigning a disinterest as his fingers turned pale around the edge of an empty whiskey glass. Poirot gestured for more light, but there were no nearby matches. He needed the detective's tools: observation, deduction, and a keen ear for gossip. Each person's presence in the room now bore heavy weight, halos of suspicion, forming around them like shadows in the flickering candlelight. His brilliant mind churned. "Stay calm, my dear friends," he said, "for within this very room the truth awaits its unveiling." He crouched again by Wentworth, scanning the evidence with meticulous care, while the tension in the air grew palpable. "Here," he murmured, as he whimsically waved at the shattered remnants of a glass on the desk. "There is a faint whiff of the perfume, a scent not of this house." He sat back on his heels, holding the torn piece of paper for all to see. On it was a name, penned in hurried script: "Margaret." Gasps filled the atmosphere, a fuel igniting the fire of suspicion. The fragments of a hidden affair or betrayal. Anything was possible within the confines of Thornbridge Manor, a stage now set for deceit that was further accentuated by the echoing pitter-patter of rain outside, masking the secrets whispered behind closed doors. But who was Margaret? As Poirot turned his gaze to the guests assembled, the gravity of undreamt darker intentions settled over them like the storm clouds outside. Each of their faces betrayed secrets, each one deeper than the last. Was it desperation, greed, or the heart's betrayal that had visited this once dignified home? Poirot tightened his brow, the essential gears of deduction clicking into place. "I will uncover the truth," he said, just as the clock struck midnight, signaling the start of a tumultuous pursuit, a storm of mystery encircling the very heart of Thornbridge Manor. And with that heavy echo, the true game had begun. Chapter 2: The Letter That Never Arrived. The morning mist clung tenaciously to Thornbridge Manor like a ghost, wrapping its ancient stones in a shroud of grey. Even as the light of day attempted to breach the damp veil, the foreboding presence of the manor remained undeniable, especially in the wake of its recent horror. Within the exquisite drawing-room, Lady Wentworth sat, her delicate frame cloaked in layers of lace and velvet, her hands trembling as they twisted the hem of her sleeve. The haunting memories of the night before echoed in her mind, and the pallor of grief carved deeper lines upon her face. It wasn't long before Hercule Poirot arrived, his polished shoes barely making a sound against the creaking floor as he stepped into the solemnity of the room. His expression was a blend of sympathy and urgency, perfectly suited to the gravity of the situation. Lady Wentworth looked up, her tear-streaked visage twisting into an expression of despair as their gazes met. "Ah, Madame," Poirot said softly, "I have come to assist you in unveiling the truth surrounding this grievous tragedy. What troubles you?" "It is my husband's letter," she gasped, her voice barely a whisper. "The one he received just days before we found him." The words fell from her lips like fragile autumn leaves. "Forgive me, Madame, I do not understand," Poirot replied, his brow furrowing with focus. "A letter?" "Yes," she continued, her eyes wide with distress. "It was to reveal something dreadful, something that concerned our family, a secret long concealed. But he never shared its contents, and now it is gone." She clutched at her heart, the tremor in her voice amplifying her anxiety. "I believe it may hold the reason for his murder." Poirot absorbed her words carefully, his mind clicking into motion, a maze of deduction unfolding. "When did he receive this letter, Lady Wentworth? And do you know from whom it was?" "It arrived 3 days prior to his death," she said, a fragile resolve overtaking her features. "It bore no return address, but he was unsettled afterward, more than I had ever seen him. He spent hours alone in his study, mumbling to himself." A gesture of understanding crossed Poirot's face. "A letter without a name. That is intriguing. This letter, Madame, did it ever reach you?" "No," she replied sharply, her fingers gripping the arm of the richly upholstered chair. "He kept it to himself. I implored him to share with me what troubled him, but he refused. He said it was not appropriate." A shiver gripped her as she visibly collapsed into the cushions. "I fear it holds the key to his death." "Indeed it may. It is ever possible that someone in your household knew of it. If it is a secret that could extinguish his life." Poirot's sharp gaze flicked around the room, taking in the meticulous portraits on the wall, all past members of the Wentworth line. "Have any of your staff mentioned the letter, seen your husband with it?" She shook her head. "I doubt any would know, except perhaps Mrs. Caldwell, my husband's housekeeper. She has been with this family for ages, and she has a watchful eye." Before Poirot could further question her, a muted knock interrupted their exchange. The door creaked open cautiously, and in walked Mrs. Caldwell, her demeanor serious, yet tinged with uncertainty. The fabric of her dress whispered as she approached them, her bushy brows knitting in concern. "Lady Wentworth," she began, "I heard you were speaking with Monsieur Poirot about the letter of the late Lord Wentworth." "Yes," Lady Wentworth replied, a flicker of hope lighting her eyes. "Do you know anything of it, Mrs. Caldwell? Can you help us find it?" "If possible." The housekeeper grew even paler. "I wish I could, my lady, but I never saw the letter myself." Her voice quivered slightly. "However, I do recall Lord Wentworth mentioning a meeting he had with someone outside our household. He received a visitor, quite secretive about it." "A visitor?" Poirot's interest piqued, and he turned his full attention back to her. "Can you recall who it was?" "I cannot say, sir, for I did not see the person, but I must warn you, the household has been strained since Lord Wentworth's passing. Tensions arise when secrets come into play, and I fear that this visitor might have been connected to it." "An excellent deduction," Poirot murmured, stroking his mustache thoughtfully. "Today brings more confusions than clarity, but this Visitor. At what time did they arrive? Late, after dinner. Lord Wentworth seemed in excellent spirits prior to his arrival, and then Mrs. Caldwell's voice faltered as she grappled with the memory. Afterwards, it was as though the life had been drained from him. I remember him pacing in the study, throwing open the window. The detective's eyes sparkled with the thrill of the chase. He needed to see the study for himself, to uncover the truth obscured by shadows. Lady Wentworth, he said, his voice steady. May I inspect the study? Lady Wentworth nodded, a surge of anxious hope igniting within her. She led Poirot through the quiet hallways of the manor, their footsteps soft against the polished wood. The air grew damp as they approached the study, the mysteries that enveloped it palpable in the atmosphere. Upon entering, Poirot moved deliberately, surveying the room, which bore witness to the late Lord Wentworth's life and sudden end. The opulence of the furnishings stood stark against the haunting stillness of the atmosphere. Sunlight spilled unevenly through the jagged window panes, revealing the remnants of the previous night. Broken glass glinting on the floor, and splotches of dried crimson on the carpet. It was here, Poirot murmured, kneeling to examine the devastation wrought earlier. And over here, I detect an impression. He reached for the desk, where darkness lingered. The torn piece of paper was still cluttered amidst the disarray. What is this again? He lifted it gently, deftly, deciphering the scrawled letters that interrupted the eloquent flow of a larger piece. Secrecy, jealousy, betrayal. He whispered the fragmented words to himself, strings of possibility whipping through his mind like strands of thread loosened from a tapestry. The urgency in him sharpened, a resolute flame igniting the embers of his intuition. Lady Wentworth, have you noticed anyone in your household with a penchant for secrecy? At that moment, Mrs. Caldwell drew closer. I worry for the children, sir. Lord Wentworth's wishes may have turned against them, and with the disappearance of that letter, I can only fear it is not just his life that is in peril. Poirot's keen eyes bore into hers, sensing the weight of her anxiety. A fine point, Mrs. Caldwell. I appreciate your honesty. He turned back to Lady Wentworth, his brows knitted in serious contemplation. The wind shifts and turbulence brews. We may be closing in on the truth, but it remains shrouded in confusion. Determined, he straightened. I will need everyone's cooperation. Scrutinizing their alibis will lead us closer to unveiling the purpose of this letter. And yet, I have a strong intuition that the secret was not meant for the Lord's eyes alone. The rain began to patter once more against the window, an ominous symphony that echoed the turmoil building in the hearts and minds of those within the manor. As Poirot prepared to exit, a fateful chill coursed through him. He had not failed to notice before him stood a door, ajar, leading to the depths of the manor, with every corner a potential hiding place for untold truths. Madame, Poirot stated, his voice authoritative yet calm, to solve this mystery, I will require your full trust, and perhaps a step into the unknown. And as they ventured forth, the final silence of Lord Wentworth's untold story gripped Thornbridge Manor, reverberating within its grand walls, yearning to be discovered. The path ahead was dark, but Poirot's resolve promised illumination. As they stepped away from the remnants of that harrowing night, one thing became clear. Every path led towards the concealed depths, waiting to unveil the letter that never arrived, the echoing secrets that lay in the shadows where danger and truth entwined. Chapter 3. The Man Who Was Not There. The atmosphere was suffused with an uncanny stillness, disturbed only by the drumming of rain against the window panes, each drop a whispered secret, clashing against walls that had witnessed too much. The scent of damp wood and aged leather filled the drawing room, a heavy reminder of the life that had once thrived within Thornbridge Manor. Yet, even amidst the soft sigh of the flickering fireplace, an unsettling absence loomed. One guest had vanished, leaving behind more questions than answers. "Where is Charles Leclerc?" Poirot's voice sliced through the tension like a scalpel, startling the room into a heightened sense of awareness. The young man, both charming and enigmatic, had been the center of attention just hours before Lord Wentworth's untimely demise. Now, however, he seemed to have evaporated into the fog of the ominous evening. His disappearance, too close to the tragedy that had been witnessed, puzzled the assembled guests, all of whom wore the look of complicity or trepidation. "Charles?" Lady Wentworth's voice trembled, her eyes darting nervously to the threshold. "I noticed he slipped away just after dinner, but he must have returned by now. It is not like him to wander off unattended." There was a worry, lines upon her brow, threads of anxiety woven tightly around her heart. "Non, madame," Poirot replied, striding purposefully to the large bay window, his sharp gaze peering into the grey veil of the world outside. "He did not return. No one has seen him since. An intriguing coincidence, is it not, that the night grows darker as he fades from our accounts?" A ripple of concern swept over the guests. Eleanor, a distant cousin of the Wentworths, leaned forward, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I saw him in the library speaking with Mrs. Caldwell before he—" "Before he what?" Poirot pressed, his mind whirling with the implications. "What transpired prior to his disappearance?" He seemed agitated, not quite his usual self. Eleanor intertwined her fingers anxiously as she spoke. "But I could not hear their conversation." "Regardez, ma chérie." Poirot turned dramatically, eyes glinting with a mixture of enthusiasm and apprehension. "It is essential that we piece together the fragments of this night. Who next can confirm his whereabouts?" Mr. Thornton, a close friend of the deceased, straightened in his chair. "I observed him in the dining hall, conversing with some of our guests, right before the gathering dispersed. He was cheerful, in high spirits, but after dinner he simply vanished." "Is that so?" Poirot scrutinized Mr. Thornton with keen interest. "And what of the housekeeper? I understand Mrs. Caldwell had her eye on him." At the mention of the housekeeper's name, Mrs. Caldwell appeared from the shadows of the doorway, her simple attire marked with an air of anxiety. "I saw him in the study before he left, Monsieur Poirot. He seemed agitated, distressed even. He inquired about Lord Wentworth, asking if I knew anything of his private concerns." Poirot nodded slowly, a gentle tapping of his fingers against the polished wooden surface, a herald of thoughtfulness. "And following this inquiry, did he mention anything else?" "No, but—" Mrs. Caldwell hesitated, her expression shifting from worry to trepidation. It was a mere moment later that he turned pale and rushed out, as if he had seen a ghost. "An apparition, perhaps, or merely the weight of truth," Poirot mused, pacing now, his mind processing the fragments, everyone offered like a tapestry unraveling into chaos. "The storm brews outside, but I sense the tempest within this manor runs deeper still. We must search for Monsieur Leclerc." The sudden sound of a crash echoed from the direction of the study, where the air grew thick with tension. All heads turned to the source, hearts pounding with a burgeoning sense of dread. In an instant, Poirot dashed across the room, moving swiftly to open the door, revealing the darkened threshold beyond. The study was a tempest itself, papers strewn about as if a great force had torn through the room. Poirot gasped softly at the sight. The broken window flung wide open, rain cascading within like the heart of a tumultuous sea. However, amidst the chaos lay a crucial clue, a small, leather-bound notebook, lying stark against the backdrop of hand-crafted mahogany. "Ah, this tells all, perhaps," Poirot said, bending to retrieve it. He could feel the eyes of the guests boring into him, anticipation winding tight among their ranks as he carefully opened the pages. Inside were scribbles, seemingly incoherent notes, jotted down in haste. Yet as he flipped through, his brow furrowed deeper with each word that spilled from the pages. There it was, a name, repeated like a mantra. Margaret. Poirot stood upright, the pieces falling into place with an alarming clarity. "Margaret, the name of the letter that remains hidden," he announced, turning to the guests. "But who is she? And how does she connect to Lord Wentworth's demise and our phantom friend Charles?" As gasps of impatience echoed around him, he caught Mrs. Caldwell's shocked expression. "Do you not see? The other guests may hold the key to unlocking this web. I must approach the matter delicately." But as he concluded his remark, a frantic rapping echoed at the door, silencing the room once more. The tension became a taut string, one that threatened to snap beneath the weight of unanswered questions. "Let me in," came a voice from the other side, hoarse and raspy, filled with desperation. The handle rattled angrily as Poirot nodded to Lady Wentworth. "Open it," she breathed, an instinctive worry gripping her tone. As the door flew open, a drenched figure stumbled inside, none other than Charles Leclerc himself, his clothing drenched and disheveled, eyes wide and frantic with fear. "The storm. I was trying to warn you," he stammered, but as he stumbled into the room, his gaze fell upon the scattered papers, and a faint recognition flashed across his face. "Charles!" Lady Wentworth exclaimed, rushing towards him. But Poirot, sensing the heart of the mystery throbbing just beneath the surface, stepped forward more purposefully. "Pardon, Monsieur Leclerc," he interjected smoothly, "but it seems you are not merely lost in the storm, are you? In fact, your timely appearance brings with it a torrent of questions we intend to pursue in earnest." The room held its breath, the air thick with unresolved tension, as Charles's unsettled gaze met Poirot's unwavering stare. "What do you know of Margaret?" came Poirot's demand, a sharp inquiry cutting through the rising dread, setting the stage for revelations twirling like the kaleidoscope of rain outside. The atmosphere shimmered with anticipation, shadows deepening as the quest for truth enveloped them once more. Chapter 4. The Will That Was Never Signed. A blast of wind slammed against the manor, rattling the windows and sending the last of the candle flames flickering wildly. Poirot stood amidst the chaos, acutely aware that the storm was not the only upheaval within Thornbridge Manor that night. The urgency of the preceding moments, wrapped in fear and suspicion, was a palpable force reverberating through the room. As the guests exchanged anxious glances, Poirot's mind was already weaving the tapestry of clues into a narrative more complex than any of them had anticipated. "Madame," Poirot said, turning to Lady Wentworth, who was still hovering protectively over Charles Leclerc, "it is time we delve into the matter of your late husband's estate. It seems a will has emerged, one that may be pivotal to understanding the motives surrounding his death." "Will?" Lady Wentworth echoed, a spark of alarm flashing in her eyes, but I thought he had no intention of changing it. The others shifted, uneasily, their faces a blend of curiosity and trepidation. Mr. Thornton leaned closer, the words teetering on his lips. "What will has emerged, Poirot?" Poirot straightened, the weight of the moment intensifying. "Earlier tonight, in the study, I found this notebook," he revealed, holding it up before the transfixed audience. Within its pages, Lord Wentworth's plans were recorded, albeit in a disorganized manner. It appears that he sought to draft a new will, perhaps to amend the inheritance, an act which may have upset those who stand to gain from the original. Eleanor, another cousin of the Wentworths, broke the tension with a nervous laugh. Surely a man of such prominence wouldn't have left such matters unresolved. Inheritance disputes would be rather unbecoming. Her feigned confidence hung in the air like smoke. "Ah, but that is where you misunderstand," Poirot retorted, his tone crisp and precise. "A will can reveal hidden truths, but it can also fracture bonds, especially among those who once held affection for one another." Jealousy, it seems, lurked under the surface. He could see a flicker of acknowledgement ripple through the group. They better understood now that their relationships had been tested. The foundation of trust cracked. "The signature. Was it executed?" Mr. Thornton asked, a hint of desperation lacing his voice. "Without a signature, it is naught but a piece of paper." "Indeed," Poirot affirmed, peering at the hastily scrawled letters of the incomplete text. "But therein lies another puzzle. Who might have had access to both the will and the opportunity to sway it in their favor?" At that moment, Mrs. Caldwell stifled a gasp, her face pallid. "He spoke to me just before the dinner, you see. He was troubled, but spoke of being unable to finalize his intentions, of doubt." "Pardon, Madame Caldwell?" Poirot's gaze intensified. Was this doubt stemming from perhaps those he intended to disinherit? All eyes turned sharply to Lady Wentworth, as if waiting for her to deny such an implication. She wavered under the scrutiny, her voice low. "It was never meant that way. He was merely weighing his options. I assure you, Charles, his sentiments were complicated. But the name of the one he feared losing, was it not nestled within that fragment?" Poirot pressed, sensing a tempest brewing within Lady Wentworth's heart. Margaret, tied by an unseen thread to Lord Wentworth's strength against the resentment brewing in this very room. The atmosphere grew tense as possibilities collided in their minds. The air thickened with speculation, the portraits lining the walls seemingly leaning in closer to eavesdrop on their unraveling secrets. But Poirot, why would he name that woman if he sought to empower us? Has the storm revealed how deeply entwined our lives truly are with Lord Wentworth's demise? Eleanor questioned breathlessly, her previous bravado dissipating. Poirot stepped closer, rolling each word through the chambers of his mind. Margaret may not represent only a lover. There lies a chance she embodied a hope for the future, a promise of something Lord Wentworth felt he may have been forced to relinquish. In his will, there may exist desires for reconciliation, cloaked in choices that benefit his legacy. As the guests pondered over these revelations, Poirot's sharp eyes narrowed. "We must investigate this will further. But first, let us not neglect the one who remains elusive." He tilted his head toward Charles, watching his expression shift subtly. "Monsieur Leclerc, your appearance tonight was fortuitous at best. Would you care to enlighten us on your connection with Margaret?" Leclerc's brow furrowed, the weight of the eyes upon him causing his composure to falter. "Margaret is someone I cared for, yes," he stammered, the words tumbling over one another in his haste. But that was all in the past. Lord Wentworth did not approve of our association. He thought I was beneath her, a distraction. A distraction, you say? Poirot mused, crossing his arms. Yet now it seems your affection has returned at a most inopportune time. What of your whereabouts before your return to this room? You seemed rather lost in that storm before you arrived. Leclerc hesitated, cautious eyes darting toward Lady Wentworth before returning to Poirot. I was simply collecting my thoughts, trying to make sense of the wandering whispers. When I heard the commotion, I feared for you all. Poirot's gaze narrowed, the tension coiling tighter in the room. And what of Margaret's connection to the will? Did you come to know of its contents in your unguarded conversations? I only heard of his contemplation to consult a legal friend. Nothing specific, Leclerc vowed, his voice trembling. Madame, please believe me, I had no intention of meddling in matters I could not fully comprehend. With that confession, Poirot felt the winds of fortune shift once more, drawing closer to the harrowing truth. It was clearer now, the machinations that twisted among them, hearts cloaked in greed. And yet, I sense there lurks a subterfuge deeper than mere affection, a secret that binds you all. The door creaked ominously, and the noise was swallowed by the hushed whispers as rain lashed violently against the manor's walls, spiriting a storm of memories intertwined in the scent of damp wood and decay. Poirot felt the air thicken again, a precipice of revelation awaiting them past the current chaos. The will remained unsigned, but its existence was no accident. Within those lines lay a revelation that could shatter their delicate equilibrium. Tonight, amid the storm, we shall find the truth. A signature will be revealed, though perhaps not in the way you may expect. Poirot's words hung heavy, a promise of revelations to come. The night deepened around them, the shadows growing thicker with every tick of the clock. Mysteries loomed unseen in the corners of the room, anticipation rasping against the edges of their souls. And as the echoes of distant thunder rumbled outside, Poirot knew they were about to uncover a tempest that could turn desire into danger, one that could very well seal their fates forever. Chapter 5. Secrets of the Greenhouse. The rain pounded relentlessly against the windows, each drop a murmur of secrets yearning to escape the confines of Thornbridge Manor. It blended into the symphony of the storm outside, a menacing score accompanying Hercule Poirot's determined steps towards the lavish greenhouse that had captured his interest since their arrival. Shadows danced in the flickering light, casting elongated figures that seemed to hold their breath as he approached the ornate door, its green paint chipped and weathered by years of neglect, much like the family's hidden history. As Poirot pushed open the door, a gust of cool air greeted him, carrying with it a damp, earthy aroma that spoke of life, growth, and memories entwined with the decay of time. The moonlight filtered through the glass ceiling, illuminating the myriad of foliage, ferns that curled elegantly, sprawling vines, and the occasional gleam of flowers, their beauty stark and surreal against the backdrop of the tumultuous night. However, amongst the verdant splendor, it was the uncanny silence that made the detective's heart race. He felt there were whispers buried in the very soil. The wooden floor creaked beneath his polished shoes as he ventured farther inside, the air thick with moisture and anticipation. The greenhouse, once an oasis of comfort and life, now felt heavy, almost foreboding. Taking in the surroundings, Poirot noticed the delicate tendrils of ivy creeping toward a particular corner, their growth almost groping for something beneath the surface. His instincts flared to life. Here, hidden beneath nature's grasp, lay a mystery waiting to be unearthed. "Mon ami, what do you hide?" Poirot murmured to himself, kneeling beside the dense greenery, fingers brushing over the lush leaves. The storm outside raged on, yet inside the greenhouse he could almost hear the heartbeat of the place pulsing with untold stories. It was then he noticed a slight disturbance in the soil, an unnatural depression that beckoned him closer. Poirot dug gently, and his heart quickened as the blade of his penknife struck wood. With careful resolve, he carved away the tangled roots and debris until an antique wooden trapdoor was exposed, its iron handle rusted and weathered by years of disuse. With a cautious glance back toward the entrance, where the sound of the storm echoed like unearthly laughter, Poirot pulled the door open. A chill wafted up from the darkness below, mingling with the scent of damp wood and forgotten memories. He hesitated for only a moment before descending. Curious whispers of history, ensconced in the shadows, promising revelations if he dared to search. The narrow staircase creaked, a hesitant protest against his weight as he moved deeper into the clandestine chamber. Upon reaching the bottom, Poirot paused to let his eyes adjust to the dim light. The room was filled with remnants of the past, crates stacked haphazardly and dust-laden shelves brimming with antiquities, letters, ornaments, and a trunk that looked as if it had not been disturbed in decades. Each object pulsed with its own energy, holding secrets that begged to be unearthed. He stepped toward the shelves, meticulously examining their contents. Old letters, envelopes yellowed with age, whispered tales of passions and heartaches, their faded ink rich with intimacy and intrigue. As he gingerly picked one up, a particular envelope caught his eye. Uniquely addressed to Lady Margaret Wentworth, it exuded an unspoken urgency, the seal still intact. His mind raced with thoughts of the elusive Margaret. After carefully setting the other letters aside, Poirot reached for the envelope. Just as he was about to break the seal, a sudden clattering sound from above jolted him upright. His heart raced as he listened intently. The steady rhythm of the rain, now accentuated by frantic footsteps echoing around the greenhouse. Instinctively, he stowed the letter back among the others, choosing discretion in the face of impending discovery. Emerging from the hidden room, Poirot quickly climbed back to the shelter of the greenhouse, instinct guiding him to a strategically placed fern under which he shielded himself. He only had to wait for the intruder to reveal their intentions. The footsteps grew nearer, each step resonating with an urgency that suggested mischief more than mere curiosity. Peering from his hiding spot, Poirot glimpsed Eleanor, striding purposefully into the greenhouse, seemingly unaware of his presence. Her expression combined determination with a hint of apprehension, one of those emotions weighing heavier than the storm that raged outside. "Where is it?" she murmured impatiently, her fingers curling into fists as they clenched and unclenched. Poirot's mind spun with the possibilities. Had she discovered something amiss? Was this fervor related to Lord Wentworth's death? The tangled web of family secrets grew, revealing a new player on this delicate chessboard. Careful not to disturb her, Poirot stepped just slightly to the side, making sure the light from the moon would not give away his hiding place. The echo of her voice crackled through the air, filled with desperation and fear. "I must find it before he returns, before they all find out," she hissed, peering around, her anxiety palpable. Poirot's mind danced through scenarios. Eleanor's unease hinted that knowledge rested with her, perhaps intertwining with her relationship to the Wentworth family. What had she learned that sent her into such a wild frenzy? His intrigue wound tighter as she approached the spot where he had at first pried open the trapdoor. She kneeled down, fingers tracing the handle almost tenderly, revealing a depth of emotion that belied her otherwise composed facade. As she prepared to lift it, Poirot emerged from his shadowy enclave, his presence a sudden unveiling of the truth. "Ah, Mademoiselle Eleanor," he called, his voice steady in the stillness. "You seek something of import, I see." In an instant, her eyes widened in alarm, a captivating mixture of shock and fear flooding her features. The mask she had worn for so long slipped, revealing cracks within her carefully crafted persona. "Monsieur Poirot, I was merely—" "Searching," he interjected, a subtle smile gracing his lips. "A pursuit of secrets of your own, perhaps?" Caught off guard, her breath quickened, the tension becoming almost palpable. "I did not expect company," she stammered, casting hurried glances around the greenhouse, as though the very walls held ears painted in their opaque seclusion. "Nor did I," Poirot replied smoothly, stepping fully into the light. "But I assure you, I do not find levity in your quest, nor does it escape my notice that it involves matters belonging to the late Lord Wentworth." Her face paled, the dread settling onto her shoulders as her frantic demeanor faded into an unsettling calm. "There are secrets better left buried, Poirot," she warned, her voice low, glancing toward the door as though fearing a sudden intrusion. "But some secrets possess a power," Poirot countered, his tone deliberate, "a power that may just illuminate the truth behind his death. It is clearer now that Margaret and her connection to this family runs deeper than all suspected. We must uncover what lies beneath." Eleanor's resolve trembled, but Poirot saw her decision waver as doubt seeped into her thoughts. "You cannot fathom. There are things that, if discovered, would threaten more than just our reputations," she whispered fiercely, her breath hitching. "What if I told you?" Poirot stepped closer, his voice both soothing and compelling. "That the truth may very well hold the key to your own salvation." Before she could respond, Poirot felt his instincts surge. Something terrible lingered below the surface, waiting to explode, and in that moment, the winds outside shifted once more, pulling at the heavy veil of rain as if to steal away the secrets trapped within. A sudden crack of thunder shook the air, reverberating through the walls of the greenhouse, bringing with it a jolt of revelation. Poirot's eyes flared with comprehension as he stepped back, the shadows of history whispering in chorus, intertwining with the chilling gusts. Somewhere in the dark recesses of that room lay the very essence of their unraveling, secrets that if unearthed could bind them all, yet shatter what remained of their lives. With a swift motion, he returned to the hidden chamber, fueled by the promise of revelations that threatened to illuminate the darkness surrounding Lord Wentworth's demise. Only time would reveal if those secrets could unlock their fates or seal them forever. Chapter 6. The Midnight Meeting. The clock struck midnight, its chime a hollow echo in the oppressive silence of Thornbridge Manor. Rain lashed against the windows like a warning. The storm outside intensified, illuminating the dark corners of the estate with flashes of silvery light. Hercule Poirot stood at the edge of the garden, the darkness around him a cloak of secrecy. In his pocket folded the cryptic note he had received only moments before, written in a frantic hand that hinted at desperation. A summons from within the Wentworth family, begging for a clandestine meeting, away from prying eyes. He stepped lightly over the drenched grass, the cool earth squelching beneath his polished shoes as he headed toward a secluded section of the garden known for its tangled overgrowth and brooding shadows. Here, under the shelter of a massive oak, the air smelled of damp earth and hidden things long forgotten. In this part of the garden, secrets thrived beneath the gnarly roots of the ancient tree, much like the hidden struggles enduring within the walls of Thornbridge Manor. Poirot paused, his heartbeat thudding in his ears as he listened. The distant sound of thunder rolled through the night, but his keen sense caught the soft murmur of voices drifting from a clearing ahead. He approached stealthily, the crunch of fallen leaves muted by the rain's incessant patter. From his concealed vantage point, he could see two figures cloaked in shadow, their postures tense. "Why must we always meet in such secrecy, Eleanor?" a voice hissed, low and strained, unmistakably that of Simon Wentworth. The flicker of uncertainty washed over him, and Poirot strained to hear. "Because we cannot trust anyone, not even our own family." Eleanor's voice was a sharp whisper, filled with an urgency that betrayed her composure. "You know what's at stake here. If they find out—" "What? That you were in the greenhouse, rifling through secrets better left hidden?" Simon's voice dripped with disdain, embers of anger igniting the darkness. "Or perhaps you prefer to forget the fate of our dear Lord Wentworth. Have you no idea of the troubles that would arise?" Eleanor took a step forward, her silhouette illuminated by a sporadic flash of lightning. "You think I do not know?" Her voice trembled, weighted with conviction. "If anyone discovers the truth of his affairs, it will not only ruin us, Simon, it will ruin everything that our family has built. Are you ready to bear that burden?" The tension between them crackled, palpable and electric. Poirot's astute mind raced, connecting threads in the tapestry of deceit that cloaked the Wentworth family. It was clear that the revelations surrounding Lord Wentworth's death transcended mere tragedy. They were intertwined with a deep-rooted betrayal that could unravel the very core of their legacy. "Then we shall do what must be done," Simon replied, albeit reluctantly. "We cannot let anyone jeopardize this. Not Eleanor, not Margaret, no one who stirs the pot." He leaned closer, and Poirot could see his expression sharpen, a mix of fear and resolve. "Do you have it? The letter? The one we agreed to retrieve?" A moment of silence hung between them, gnawing like the storm itself. Poirot could hear Eleanor draw in a ragged breath, words trembling on the precipice of her lips. I have not seen it since I last visited the greenhouse, but I'm certain it's still there." "The trapdoor," he interjected, a sudden realization igniting his intellect. "You knew it would be exposed once I ventured into the shadows. You intended to keep me away from the truth." Eleanor's gaze snapped to Simon, a vulnerability flaring within her. "What if I told you it wasn't just Lord Wentworth's affairs? What if you knew who could truly be responsible for his death?" "A fool's errand, Eleanor," Simon snapped, his frustration spilling over. "Your dreams of bravado will only lead to our demise. We must keep the bloodlines intact. Do you understand? The family must come first, even at the cost of—" The crack of another thunderclap drowned out his words, causing Poirot's heart to skip a beat. The urgency of the moment heightened. There was something critically contributing to their fears, a betrayal that simmered between them, threatening to boil over into chaos. "Enough," Eleanor interrupted, her voice fierce, yet trembling. "We cannot play the blame game when the very future of our family hangs in the balance. The letter, it must not fall into the wrong hands. It contains the truth that could destroy us all." Poirot peered more closely, his mind unraveling the threads of their conversation, keenly aware that this exchange was a pivot in the mystery. The letter Eleanor spoke of had become a beacon of desperation, a crucial piece in the puzzle of Lord Wentworth's demise. Yet the shadows between them prevented Poirot from discerning its nature fully. A betrayal? An affair? Or perhaps both? As the two continued their conversation, Poirot noted the way Eleanor's hands clenched into fists, betraying a turmoil that simmered just below the surface. Their urgency painted her as a woman grappling with her motives. Was she a willing participant in the deception, or caught within a net she could not escape? "Wait," Simon's voice cut through the fierce storm. "We must not delay any longer. What awaits if we do not act? I will not lose everything because of our indecision." The sound of fabric rustling reached Poirot's ears as Eleanor's figure shifted, and instincts rang alarm bells within him. He had to ensure that whatever agreement they had concocted did not threaten their collective fate. Unbeknownst to them, he was hidden in plain sight, awaiting the perfect moment to reveal himself. "Simon, I cannot go to the greenhouse again." Eleanor's voice quivered, a stark candor breaking through the facade of tension. "Not after what happened." "But you must," Simon urged, desperation creeping into his tone. "We leave tonight. I will accompany you." In that instant, a glimmer within Eleanor's gaze shifted. Was it fear or something darker? "You'll betray me, will you not?" "Nothing is sacred anymore," she warned, her voice thin like a silken thread, ready to snap. Insufficient resolve surged through Poirot as he prepared to step forward and interject, but fate had a different plan. Just then, a sharp crack of lightning illuminated the garden, and the power of nature surged with an intensity that shook the very earth beneath him. The boom reverberated, and in a moment of chaos, the two figures whirled around, searching for the source of their sudden unease. "Who goes there?" Simon shouted, voice trembling with a mix of fear and anger. The shadows had shifted, and the atmosphere felt heavier as Poirot stepped into the fleeting light, hands raised in tranquil submission. "Mademoiselle Eleanor, Monsieur Simon, your secret has not gone unnoticed. I trust you will allow me to contribute to this fascinating discourse." Their expressions morphed, shock intertwining with dismay as their truths hung precariously in the downpour of rain and secrets. Two players caught in the uncertainty of their game, yet Poirot's entrance had shifted the entire landscape. Secret? What secret? Eleanor stumbled, her brows knitting together. "The letter," Poirot replied smoothly, a strategic glint lighting his sharp gaze. "And with it, your very truth may yet be revealed amid the tempest surrounding you. Yet one piece eludes me, and I think it's time to bring it all to light." As he spoke, the weight of his revelation, betrayal, longed to surface. The genuine fears that hid within the darkness could soon intertwine with the revelations waiting to unravel. Who bore the true weight of blame for Lord Wentworth's demise? And what secrets lay dormant in the soil beneath Eleanor's fragile grasp? "Tell me," he pressed, "what betrayal lies within the hearts of the Wentworths?" Before he could receive an answer, a figure emerged from the shadows, drenched and wild-eyed, and in that heartbeat of revelation, Poirot understood that tonight was but a mere prologue to the tempest that awaited, one that could either furnish their fate or destroy what was left of their very souls. Chapter 7. A Whisper from the Dead. The rain fell heavy against the window panes of Thornbridge Manor, the drops cascading as if nature itself sought to wash away the stains of sin that clung to the centuries-old estate. Inside, a single candle flickered in the vast study, the flame wavering as a gust of wind rattled the shutters. Seated at the large mahogany desk, Hercule Poirot unfolded a weathered piece of parchment, the material soft, yet consumed with dust of time. The letters he had received that afternoon, an anonymous tip claiming to unearth hidden truths, had heralded him to this moment, this clandestine hour where shadows whispered secrets of the dead. The clock ticked with a hypnotic rhythm as he studied the handwriting, a fraught scrawl punctuated by unsteady strokes, laden with an urgency that seemed to echo in the very air around him. If you truly seek answers regarding Lord Wentworth's demise, the note warned, look to his correspondence. Within those pages, the dead still speak. Poirot frowned, the significance of those stolen moments tugging at his mind. Love letters, regrets, or perhaps darker confessions. Yet the winds outside howled as if in warning, drawing him deeper into his contemplation and into the heart of a mystery laden with danger. He set about methodically gathering the contents of the desk, a multitude of letters enveloped in frayed twine, each envelope embossed with the Wentworth family crest. As Poirot untied them, the first letter, addressed to an amorous dearest, unveiled a world of emotion, wrapped in flowery prose, the sort that could ignite jealousy, passion, and betrayal in equal measure. The name, however, was not familiar to him. He committed it to memory, aware that this thread, once pulled, could unravel a tapestry far more intricate than he had previously envisioned. Flashing lightning illuminated the dim room, and with it came a sudden image flickering in Poirot's mind. The tension of the preceding night, the way Eleanor had shifted under Simon's scrutiny, her gaze tightening at the mention of their late patriarch's affairs. Was it not the heart of man to shield one's secrets, especially within the labyrinths of family ties? He turned to the next letter, the paradox of emotion thrumming between his fingers as he unfolded it. It was dated a fortnight before Lord Wentworth's untimely death. My very soul aches for you. I cannot endure this turmoil. The words swam into view, but Poirot paused. Thoughts racing as a name emerged, a certain Margaret Harrington, very much entwined within the Wentworth's narrative. The letter's contents suggested a liaison steeped in desperation, and the repeated refrain of being unable to bear the weight of a hidden truth felt suffocating. The very rhythm of the letter contradicted itself. It pulsed with longing, yet hinted at a perilous obscurity. Poirot cast his eyes away momentarily, brow furrowed as he assessed the faded ink that appeared almost ghostly under the flickering candlelight. His intuition whispered, urging him to probe deeper. There was insight buried within these missives that could carve paths toward either salvation or damnation for the Wentworth family, and he would be at the forefront of that reckoning. He recited the words gently, as though coaxing them from dormancy back into the world, a futile attempt to grasp their meaning. Suddenly, a noise outside broke the silence, a sharp rustle in the garden, like the sound of someone moving. Poirot straightened, the delicate letters momentarily forgotten as he listened intently to the growing chaos of the storm. Were his thoughts imagining phantom footsteps, or was someone truly seeking to intrude upon the sanctuary of this search? His moment of quiet contemplation shattered when he rose, lowering himself into the cloak of the shadows cast by the dying light. The creaking doors of the study were stealthily approached, inches away from revelation. Poirot moved toward them, the whispers of the rain providing sanctity against the solitude surrounding him. The figure was unmistakably a woman, her silhouette stark against the sheets of rain slashing through the open garden. Margaret, he recognized instantly, desperate and soaked through as though the storm sought to consume her. Her eyes ablaze with a hidden life, she entered the study without invitation, a slip of parchment clutched in her trembling hands. "Poirot, you must help me," she implored, urgency trembling through her voice as she caught sight of the mess of letters still scattered across the desk. "Mademoiselle Harrington," he greeted, taking a step closer as the gravity of her presence became apparent. "What brings you here at such a time?" "I had no choice. I found this letter among my belongings, but it is not merely sentimental." The tension in her voice was a melody of fear and resolve. "It contains a confession." Poirot's interest peaked as she unfurled the note, a shivering fragment of their dark history spilling into the air like smoke. The ink was barely legible, words of denial and desperation intertwined within shaky lines. "It belongs to Lord Wentworth," she explained, her composure cracking like thunder in the distance. "It reveals the truths I never wanted to face." He leaned closer, the air thickening with anticipation, as Margaret's fingers trembled over the letter's contents. "What does it say?" he urged, the atmosphere sagging beneath the weight of the moment. "It speaks of a secret affair, a connection so profound it threatened not just his life." She hesitated, swallowing hard. "It speaks of planned duplicity, murder, Poirot, the unraveling of family dynamics leading to his death." Poirot's reflection met her gaze, understanding dawning amidst the turmoil, a confession that encompassed both desire and murder, a twisted legacy born of love and hatred alike. "And the one who bore witness?" he pressed with vigor. Margaret's breath caught, emotion flooding her complexion as she whispered, "Eleanor." The revelation hung suspended in the chilling air of the study, a breathless acknowledgement of the dangers lying ahead. "There, we have it," Poirot murmured, the pieces of the puzzle clicking into place yet again. The previously dismissed notion of Eleanor's involvement now sharpened into something pronounced, a locus of betrayal, encircled by misplaced love and utter desperation. Before she could respond, another crack of thunder roared, and a heavy rain descended, casting the room into darkness. In the inky quiet that followed, Poirot's heartbeat quickened. Lightning illuminated the pathway ahead. The storm urged him to delve deeper, to tear away the veil of regret. Within this room, full of ghostly whispers, the threshold to the truth awaited. Margaret bit her lip, as though to stifle a scream, as the lights flickered back to life, revealing the shadows that danced about them. Poirot tightened his grip around the edges of the table, senses heightened. He would not let the storm extinguish the flicker of truth. Secrets from the grave beckoned, clues concealed by emotional weight lingered, and all the while, shadows moved closer, hinting that the true darkness, perhaps, was still yet to come. Chapter 8. The Shadow in the Portrait. Rain battered against the windows of Thornbridge Manor, each drop striking like a foreboding note in a tense symphony. Poirot stood bathed in the yellow flicker of candlelight, the contours of his countenance illuminated for a fleeting moment before plunging back into shadow. The air hung dense with tension, a silent precipice teetering over the abyss of dark truths waiting to be unveiled. Margaret Harrington had barely exited when the creak of the old house seemed to whisper secrets only the walls had harbored. Poirot's mind raced, 1,000 possibilities playing through his thoughts as he turned back to the desk, now littered with letters that spoke of treachery and heartache. "C'est incroyable," he murmured to himself, the revelation of Eleanor's connection vibrating like a plucked string in the back of his mind. But there was more. There always was. The faint sound of footsteps echoed beyond the heavy mahogany door, and Poirot straightened, listening. A pull of uncertainty gripped him. This was a night for shadows, secrets often emerging from corners, long since darkened. He walked to the entrance, opening the door with a slow deliberation to reveal Simon Wentworth, standing drenched and wild-eyed as if he had run through the storm itself. "Poirot, I must speak with you at once." His voice, a mixture of fear and urgency, cut through the ominous ambience of the manor. "Of course, Monsieur Simon, but tell me, what brings you here, drenched, and dare I say, on the precipice of an emotional tempest?" Poirot motioned for Simon to step inside, the storm clamoring behind him like a beast hunger-driven. "I was in the portrait gallery," Simon blurted, breathless, "and I found something, a painting of my father, Lord Wentworth." "Ah, the esteemed Lord Wentworth, a man surrounded by shadows," Poirot replied, leading Simon further into the room, the candlelight casting dancing reflections on the walls, flickering like stuttering memories of the past. Simon shifted uncomfortably. "The portrait, it has been altered. The brushwork is different. Near the eyes. I'm sure of it. Someone wanted to conceal something." Poirot raised an eyebrow, the gears of his mind shifting as if he had found a long-lost key. "Altered? You mean there is a secret hidden in the likeness of your father? What about the eyes?" There's a shadow. Something is reflected in them," Simon stammered, running a hand through his soaked hair as he struggled to make sense of the horror unfurling in his mind. "I pondered that perhaps it was my imagination, but—" "Non, non, your instinct is vital," Poirot encouraged sharply, taking a step closer, his intellect igniting in anticipation of a new layer unfolding in this dark narrative. "Accompany me, Monsieur Simon. We must inspect this alteration together." They ventured through winding corridors, their footsteps muted against the ancient carpets. As they approached the dimly lit portrait gallery, Poirot could feel the weight of history pressing upon them, the very walls alive with whispers of the dead and echoes of the living. Each portrait captured a world, yet within the frame of Lord Wentworth, a grim revelation lurked. In the gallery, heavy draperies framed the painting, its colors dulled by layers of time. There he stood, Lord Wentworth, imperious and proud. Yet his expression held an indefinable hint of sorrow, a glimmer of anguish barely concealed beneath layers of oil on canvas. Poirot leaned in, examining it with keen scrutiny. Simon stepped close too, his unease palpable as he pointed toward the eyes. "There, look closely," Simon urged, voice dropping to a hushed octave. Poirot's gaze shone with intellectual vigor, dissecting every brushstroke. "Mais oui," he murmured as he turned to examine other portraits flanking the room, a sudden clarity igniting in his mind. "Look here, Simon. The differences not only speak of an artistic alteration, but of intentional concealment. Notice the signature?" Simon squinted at the bottom corner. It is signed, here, but I cannot read it. Exactment. It does not appear to be the hand of your family's regular artist, an attempt to cover the true identity of the painter, an identity that when unveiled could bring forth darker truths. Poirot straightened, excitement coursing through him. Perhaps one could even say emotions reflected within those altered eyes could be the key to his demise. Simon blinked, processing Poirot's every word. The atmosphere around them thickened, pregnant with unspoken fears. You believe this could tie into his death? Mais naturellement, but we need more than instinct. We must uncover the artist, even unearth the reasons behind the painting's alteration, Poirot replied, his voice teetering on the edge of urgency. What else, what more, we may uncover remains hidden. But just as he spoke, a thunderclap echoed like doom reverberating through the corridors, and the lights flickered, then failed completely, plunging them into darkness. Poirot! Simon's panic rose palpably in the silence that followed. What if someone is here? What if they come for us? Poirot felt the encroaching shadows, betraying an unseen presence hidden deep within the darkness of the manor. Please calm yourself, Monsieur Simon. Darkness is merely an absence of light. The truth, however, lurks, waiting to be drawn out. As he reached for his pocket watch, seeking a flicker of illumination from the remaining candle, he felt a subtle movement at the edge of the gallery. Poirot's instincts rose to meet the unknown. Who goes there? He demanded, voice steady yet commanding. A silhouette shifted, barely illuminated by the frail light. The figure stepped forward, revealing the unmistakable outline of Eleanor Wentworth, drenched and fragile beneath the weight of the moment, her eyes wide with fear and anguish. You shouldn't be here, she whispered, her voice trembling like autumn leaves caught in a draught. It's too late for everything. Poirot's heart raced with thrilling urgency. The elusive threads of betrayal were tightening, and the portrait's shadow had unveiled a new layer of the game. Too late? Poirot echoed, his voice steadied like an anchor, his mind alight with questions that bore down on them. Perhaps not, Mademoiselle Eleanor. The art of concealment offers its grim secret still, and soon we shall discover the truth that lies behind the shadow in the portrait. As the lightning flashed once more, illuminating her frightened expression, Poirot understood. They had only just scratched the surface of a twisted narrative rooted deeply within the Wentworth lineage. The truth loomed large, and as secrets lay waiting to be uncovered, the storm outside clashed with revelations ready to break forth. A storm of lives intertwined, and the next chapter loomed like a shadow at their doorstep, ready to engulf them all. Chapter 9. The Light in the Attic. The wind howled through the rafters of Thornbridge Manor like a mournful spirit, an eerie symphony accentuated by the relentless patter of rain against the window panes. Inside, Poirot moved with purpose, his sharp mind ignited by the dark hints of truth dug out from the murky depths of the Wentworth legacy. The mention of the attic had ignited a spark in his seasoned intuition, and with a new determination, he ascended the creaking staircase that spiraled toward the upper echelons of the manor. Each step reverberated with the history of lives entwined here, the walls whispering secrets of past joys and heartaches. An ancient lantern flickered precariously in his hand, casting long shadows that danced alongside him as he approached the door to the attic. The silence was profound, stretched taut like a finely spun thread, and Poirot could feel the weight of anticipation hanging in the air. He hesitated for just a moment, a subtle reminder of the dark revelations that lay ahead, then pushed the door open. The attic revealed itself as a realm forgotten by time. Dust motes hung lazily in the beam of his lantern like suspended memories, and the scent of aged wood filled his lungs. Old trunks and faded furniture huddled together beneath a sloped ceiling, shrouded in mystery and layers of neglect. Poirot's keen eyes scanned the cramped space, searching for the particular clue he sensed was hidden here. He approached a trunk that seemed to gnaw at the edges of his curiosity. Its leather was cracked and weathered, yet unlike the others, it bore a lock still glinting defiantly in the dim light. Driven by instinct and a sense of impending discovery, Poirot reached for a small tool from his pocket, his fingers deftly manipulating the lock until it clicked open, as if the trunk had been waiting for him to unlock its secrets. With a hesitant pull, the lid creaked open, and Poirot's lantern illuminated the interior. Inside lay an assortment of documents, old photographs, and a small velvet pouch, its texture rich and dark. Holding his breath, he rummaged through the papers, gathering enough information to slowly erect a tapestry of deception. The first item that caught his attention was a stack of letters, neatly tied with a fraying ribbon. Shifting aside years of dust, he delicately unfolded one, the faint scent of perfume drifting from its ink. It spoke of a passionate rendezvous, signed with a flourish that belonged not to Lord Wentworth but to Eleanor, each line dripping with longing and secrecy. His heart raced at the implications. Knowing this piece of correspondence added depth to the tangled web linking Eleanor to a life of duality. Poirot paused, pondering the depth of emotions this woman had concealed within the manor's very walls. What despair had driven her to conceal a love that could unravel so many lives? He kept his eyes scanning the remaining contents of the trunk, each paper coaxing out more dread with each revelation. A photograph slipped from beneath the letters, fluttering to the ground. Poirot picked it up, revealing the image of a young Lord Wentworth, with a striking woman at his side, Eleanor. Yet there was another figure cast in shadow, a man whose features seemed vaguely familiar, an undeniable likeness to Simon. The photograph was dated merely weeks before Lord Wentworth's death, a haunting snapshot of whispered alliances and hidden intentions. This confirms much, he pondered, aloud, feeling a chill creep down his spine. The spectres of time continued to weave their stories, but there remained one mystery: what lay within the small velvet pouch? Unfastening the tie, he opened it gingerly to reveal a delicate gold locket. He pried it open, and the gasps of a faint breath welcomed the revelation within, as the lock revealed an intricately painted miniature of a woman, but not Eleanor. The likeness bore a striking resemblance to Margaret Harrington. The realization exploded in Poirot's mind as he noted the intersection of identities and loyalties. C'est incroyable, he issued fervently, his voice echoing against the attic walls. There was more to the simmering relationship between these two women, and he knew the locket contained a bitter truth waiting to be unraveled. Just as he was about to plunge deeper into thought, a sudden noise broke the still air, a muffled thump echoing through the storied wood. Poirot straightened, an instinctual flutter in his chest as he stepped closer to the dim corners of the attic. "Simon, is that you?" he called softly, his voice dancing nervously amidst the shadows. No reply came, only the persistent rumble of thunder. underscoring the turbulent atmosphere of not just the storm outside, but the storm of revelations within the Wentworth family. Yet his intuition, honed and sharp, urged him to investigate further. Poirot moved quietly, surveying the dim corners until he discovered a hidden panel in the wall, its edges worn and forlorn. Once more, it felt as if time had conspired against the characters intertwined within. At that precise moment, a flash of lightning illuminated the attic, and in its stark light, he noticed something tucked behind an old wooden beam, an envelope, crumpled and moisture-stained. As he retrieved it, he knew it would be pivotal to deciphering the tangled narratives connecting the Wentworth family and the fateful night of murder. Opening the envelope, Poirot felt a surge of anticipation as he uncovered yet another letter, the handwriting unmistakably that of Lord Wentworth, filled with anxiety and dread, detailing fears of betrayal within the family, trust shattered, intentions questioned. A final line leaped out. "She knows the secret, and if she moves to reveal it, my fate will be sealed." Poirot's pulse quickened, the implications washing over him like a deluge of rain from the storm above. No character within this saga was untouched by shadows, nor were there lives beyond the reach of darker machinations. The connection swirling around Margaret and Eleanor was now bound to the locket and attached to the very heart of Lord Wentworth's despair. "Monsieur Simon, we may very well be approaching the crux of it," he exclaimed, urgency igniting his thoughts. But then the attic door creaked ominously, and a figure loomed in the dim opening, a silhouette, drenched and fragile, the storm lashing behind them. It was Eleanor, her face pale and wrought with terror that resonated against the jagged edges of his heart. "Poirot," she gasped, her voice trembling like the frail light of the lantern. "We need to leave. They're coming for you. Coming for all of us." The realization swirled within him. The storm was not merely outside, its tempest filled Thornbridge Manor, and the very heart of the mystery was now racing toward a violent crescendo. With only the glimmer of the truth lighting the way, Poirot understood that secrets were clawing to the surface, with danger waiting just beyond the horizon. Here, in the heart of the manor, the light in the attic revealed only the beginning of unspeakable truths that would shake the foundations of the Wentworth family forever. As shadows converged and tension built, Poirot braced himself for the storm that was yet to come. Chapter 10. The Beauty Beneath the Surface. Thunder rumbled overhead, shaking the very foundations of Thornbridge Manor, which stood resolute against the wrath of the storm that besieged it. Poirot felt a swell of anticipation as he gathered the remaining suspects in the grand drawing-room, the flickering candlelight casting long, wavering shadows across their anxious faces. Eleanor was there, her pulse still racing. Simon with furrowed brows that belied his cool facade, coupled with Margaret Harrington, who appeared tense and defensive. The atmosphere thickened with unspoken accusations, every moment charged with the electric energy of distrust gripping the air. "Mes amis," Poirot began, his voice steady and deliberate, "the truth is now within our grasp. All of you are intertwined in this web, and it is time we unravel it for good." He surveyed their faces, his keen eyes catching the slight tremor of Eleanor's hand as she clutched the armrest. "It is not merely a storm that threatens us, but secrets, dark shadows which, if unseen, may swallow this family whole." Outside, the wind howled, a ghostly chorus that matched the tumult brewing within. Poirot motioned for Manor butler, Alfred, to bring forward the peculiar heirlooms he had unearthed from the attic. Each item would ignite a device for revelation. Each would serve as a key to unlock the buried truths hidden beneath their polished surfaces. The old-fashioned trunk creaked as it was set down, echoing a warning. As Poirot unveiled the locket, its delicate gold gleamed beneath the trembling light. This, my esteemed guests, belonged to someone deeply enmeshed in the Wentworth's secrets. His eyes flicked toward Margaret, whose breath quickened in response. It contains the likeness of a woman who may not be unfamiliar to all of you. Margaret's expression flickered with uncertainty before being veiled by her practiced demeanor. Perhaps it speaks to the scandal you intend to expose, Poirot. But we are all entangled in this web. It doesn't have to be horrific. A clever diversion, perhaps, Poirot challenged, his voice more like a needle than a hammer. Yet it is a distraction from the heart of the matter. The room tightened around him, the intensity morphing into a palpable entity. Eleanor, you mentioned that it is too late for everything. Did these shadows reach a point where they could no longer be contained? Eleanor's voice quivered. I only wish to protect those I love. But Poirot read the distress fueling her words. Beneath that veneer lay the raw panic of a woman who had known far too much. Protect, or perhaps hide truth. Poirot's tone sharpened, drawing everyone's gaze with an urgent intensity. You harbored a secret relationship with Lord Wentworth, did you not? And other emotions that seemed tangled with the fate of both Margaret and Simon. But with truth comes consequence, Margaret shot back, her irritation flickering like the candle flames. You presume too much, Poirot. Do you think guilt works alone? No, we all wear masks, and you must lift them carefully. In much the same way, a slip of the tongue can unveil hidden motives. Poirot pressed on, leaning closer to Simon. Your movement that day was rather hasty. You worried more than the others about our dear Lord's final hours, did you not? As if your certain knowledge precariously balanced on the brink of danger. Simon's jaw clenched, barely concealing the turmoil beneath his composed exterior. You're grasping at straws, Poirot. This is nonsense. None of us hold that sort of malfeasance. The only sin here is the one you ascribe upon us. Ah, but is that not a profound admission? Poirot offered, an air of calm certainty enfolding him. In what I've gathered, it leads me to a singular thought. What if the guilt that binds you has stemmed from an initial betrayal? To believe it was born from love or vice is to entirely miss the lesson taught, he remarked, almost to himself, eyes flickering between Eleanor and Margaret. Margaret's lips pressed together tightly, each movement toward confrontation, sending tremors through her resolve. Enough! Surely we can't merely point fingers. There must be another way out of this quagmire. On the contrary, the truth is the only way, Poirot answered, his voice rising above the thrum of the rain outside. And now we must brave through our darkest hour to grasp the light. He almost reveled in the fluctuating emotions, swirling in the room. Each confession seemed to shift, like the trepidation of the storm outside, lending itself to new insight, ready to burst forth. Seizing a moment of explosive tension, Poirot settled on Simon once again. Earlier, you spoke about your aloofness to Lord Wentworth's affairs, yet I remain unconvinced. You knew of the locket, didn't you? Poirot's inquiry hung hauntingly, suspended beneath the flickering candles, until Simon stammered, "What are you suggesting?" Poirot smiled, knowing he had struck at a game-changing truth. You knew well of Eleanor's connection, and perhaps you wished to protect her, but at what cost? The guilt of complicity can weigh more heavily than betrayal itself, no? No, it isn't. But Simon faltered, realizing his words betrayed him as well. And in that brief interval, Poirot caught the flicker of a glance exchanged between him and Margaret, laden with heat and sudden fear. That moment fed the fire of suspicion, simmering all around. A bond, forged under congregation. Love? Jealousy? Yes, perhaps. It is all so beautiful beneath the surface, Poirot commented, not waiting for Simon to steady his truth. You are the portrait of one who conceals more than appearances suggest. But we must descend deeper into these waters before we drown in them. Just then, a crash of thunder echoed violently, and the old manor shuddered under the weight of the storm, sending loose items tumbling across the floor, startling all present. But the chaos had unwrapped another thread, a path to revelation. Poirot stood resolute, a figure of calm amidst a deluge, ready to navigate the convoluted secrets of the Wentworth legacy. And as he turned back, a glint from a nearby table caught his eye. He stepped forward, hand outstretched, discovering an old, crumpled piece of parchment, a letter wrapped around a small key. The familiar handwriting sent shivers of recognition through him. The truth we discussed may lie beneath this surface, he murmured, gripping the key within his palm like a talisman. With one glance around the room, he knew they were all hungering for answers. The beauty that lay beneath the deception would soon erupt, forcing them to confront the reality that bound them. Shadows lifted, a tempest brewed. The beauty was poised to emerge, but not without deeper confessions that would leave no soul untouched. The stage was set. The curtain would rise soon on the final act of their intricate drama, and he was ready to illuminate it all. Chapter 11. The Confession. No one heard. A sudden flash of lightning brightened the drawing room, followed by a crash of thunder that reverberated through Thornbridge Manor like the echo of untold secrets. Poirot stood in the center of the room, the key clutched tightly in his hand, the dim candlelight flickering as though it were the heart of the storm itself. Eleanor, Simon, and Margaret watched him, their faces contorted by anxiety and uncertainty, each a mask hiding their deeper truths. "Monsieur Poirot," Simon began, his voice steadier than his pallor suggested, "you cannot expect us to sit idly by while you turn the screws of your investigation. We're not all guilty of murder." Poirot's gaze intensified, penetrating Simon's defense. "Indeed, my good Simon, yet here we all stand, tangled in a web that would ensnare even the cleverest of spiders. There is more at stake than the mere suggestion of guilt. You all fear the revelation of the truth that lurks in the shadows." Stepped forward, his theatricality heightening the tension in the room. "Eleanor, do you not see the storm we are in? It is not merely the tempest outside. It is this gathering, this family, cloaked beneath years of lies." The air was charged with tension, the storm resonating around them, as if the manor itself were listening. Eleanor trembled slightly, an unmistakable flicker of fear crossing her face. "Poirot, please," she urged, her voice cracking like the thunder overhead. "We don't need more of this charade. We are not here to trifle in misery." Margaret pierced through the mood with a defensive edge. "You tread dangerously, Poirot. Accusation may lead you to the brink of despair yourself." As the conversation swelled, Poirot's sharp eyes did not miss the flicker of hesitation in Simon's expression. It was subtle but revealing, a glimmer of truth, yielding to the weight of the chaos outside and the unresolved conflict within. He directed his attention to Simon. You say you are innocent, yet your breath quickens when the conversation veers toward Lord Wentworth. You bear burdens heavier than the rain itself, no? Enough, Poirot, Simon shouted, his composure cracking under the pressure. He stepped forward, his demeanor shifting like a candle extinguished by the wind. I did not kill him, but I was there that night. A sharp intake of breath echoed through the room like the tolling of a mournful bell. Poirot's eyes widened, not with surprise, but with a keen understanding that yet more complications lay in the offing. You were there, he repeated, his voice calm, but the stakes sky-high. Pray tell, what were you doing? Simon's features contorted, vulnerability replacing bravado, as he glanced at Eleanor, then back at Poirot. He faltered, shaking his head in anguish. I was trying to protect her. I didn't intend for it to go so far. His voice lowered, thick with disbelief, at the weight of his own confession. Protect her, Poirot pressed, noting every tremble in Simon's hands, every shadow marrying his guilt. From what? What shadows lay so heavy as to warrant the spilling of blood? Eleanor's face blanched, her expression morphing into a portrait of confusion. You were there. What do you mean, Simon? What did you see? Simon's voice choked, the dam of emotion cracking wide. I meant to confront my uncle about Margaret. I wanted to tell him it was over. I couldn't let him ruin everything. But when I entered his study, they were arguing. Lord Wentworth knew things he threatened to reveal. A dreadful stillness fell over the room, broken only by the relentless patter of rain against the window. Poirot's mind whirred, connecting fragmented details, each a piece of a labyrinthine puzzle. And Margaret was in that study as well, he concluded, eyes locked upon Simon, unyielding. Yes, Simon admitted, shoulders slumping, as despair washed over him. The argument escalated, and I didn't mean to. I pushed him. It all happened so fast, and he fell. I thought he was just knocked out. Margaret stepped back, her face pale, but glimpses of rage flared in her eyes. How could you? She hissed. You've brought this into the light. With a storm brewing in her gaze, she appeared simultaneously terrified and infuriated. You think that you can just dismiss all that the Wentworths have sacrificed for the sake of your cowardice? Stay out of this, Margaret, Simon fired back bitterly. You have no idea what I've endured, what we all have endured. I won't let anyone else suffer, Poirot interjected, his voice slicing through the rising tension. And yet here we are, faced with the substance of a murder inquiry and threats that loom over everyone present. His intense scrutinizing gaze began to sweep across them again. But the question, dear friends, is not merely who struck the fatal blow, but who orchestrated this unfortunate scene. Eleanor gasped. Orchestrated? Are you suggesting this was all planned? No, it can't be. Poirot's eyes flicked to her sharply. Ah, but that is precisely the heart of it. Secrets do not merely exist. They are born from intentions, whispering from shadow to shadow, and they hold the key to unmasking not just one guilty party, but the undercurrents that have thrived across generations. The thunder rumbled closer, the wind howling like a voice of dissent along the manor's ancient walls. Poirot took a step toward the fireplace, where flickering embers cast a morbid glow. Eleanor, you mentioned earlier that it was too late for everything. Perhaps in your heart lay the knowledge that there was more to the Wentworth saga than mere scandal, a lineage steeped in treachery and betrayal. Of course, Eleanor's voice was rising once again, full of desperation. But Simon isn't the killer. There's more. It's a family secret spanning generations. It was that very secret that led to all this. A new glint of understanding illuminated Poirot's eyes. So there exists an implication beyond personal grievance, a deeper familial divide, a secret that was carried by the very forces that sought to unravel it. Yes, a concealed legacy, Eleanor cried, her exposition driven by an unseen urgency. It all began years ago, with the elder Wentworths. Poirot's heart thundered with a moment of revelation. Just as he prepared to probe further, they were interrupted by a sudden bark of a speaker hidden within the mantel, a hidden contraption that sprang to life as if alive. Snow shrouded the air with tendrils of frost, melding centuries of darkness with the pulse of the now. "Find that key, Poirot," Simon whispered, desperation in his voice, an undertone of panic. "If it feels wrong to expose this, just know there is more danger at play, truths buried under foundations this family has built to survive." The flickering candles cast grotesque shadows across their wide eyes, each reflecting a tangle of betrayal, fear, and urgency. The pieces were slowly falling into place, yet, the more they unveiled, the more treacherous the landscape ahead. Poirot gripped the key tighter, its cold metal a reminder of the impending storm. The storm of truth about to unfurl. "The deeper we delve, the more peril we create, mes amis," he said, an intensity filling his voice as he turned to face his companions once more. Before he could utter another word, another crash of thunder split the air, and the lights flickered violently, plunging them into uncertainty once again. The truth loomed just tantalizingly out of reach. But beneath the tempest of secrets, one deeper revelation awaited. A revelation that would shatter everything and change the lives of the Wentworths forever. In this moment, Poirot knew the next step they took would either plunge them deeper into the abyss or finally unravel the sinister fabric woven through generations. And as the storm pressed closer to the manor, he understood that the final act of this harrowing play was about to unroll, leaving all present gasping in its wake, yearning desperately for the veils of darkness to finally part. Chapter 12. The Truth Behind Closed Doors. The unmistakable screech of the wind clawed at the windows of Thornbridge Manor, as if even nature itself were embroiled in the tragedies haunting its dilapidated walls. Poirot, standing tall amid the tempest of truth and deception, felt an overwhelming sense of inevitability hanging in the air. He could almost taste it, the bitter tang of betrayal, mingling with the sharpness of secret pasts that clung to the fabric of this cursed household. "Ah, but there is a quiet tension, non?" he remarked, breaking the hushed stillness that had settled upon the room like a shroud. The faces around him, Eleanor, Simon, and Margaret, held expressions of both hope and trepidation, reflecting their chaotic inner worlds. It was time to strip away the veils that shrouded their sorrow. Poised with the key in his hand, Poirot's keen gaze flickered between them. "It is a matter of uncovering the shadows hidden in the corners of this manor. Are you all willing to confront the consequences of what truly lies beneath?" Before anyone could answer, a sudden crash of thunder reverberated ominously, a powerful backdrop to the revelations waiting to unfold. "The very storm that led you to this point," he mused aloud, "could serve as a metaphor for the turbulence of emotions held within these walls." Eleanor stepped forward, her voice trembling. "Poirot, if there's more to this, perhaps we should—" "I can feel it, the darkness weighing down on us all." "Indeed, Madame," Poirot said softly as he glanced at the old key once more, a cold metal retaining warmth from his palm. Let us open the door to the past and free ourselves from the chains binding us to these horrors. Eleanor, gripping the mantelpiece for support, suddenly shouted, "But what if the truth shatters us?" "To the contrary, my dear lady," he replied. "The truth is the singular act that can liberate us all. Shall I?" A collective breath filled the room as Poirot moved toward the door that led to the study, the very location that had witnessed both conflict and fear so many nights prior. He glanced back at Simon, whose gaze betrayed unshed emotions. "If you were indeed in that study, then it is imperative we uncover what transpired," Poirot said, gesturing for Simon to join him. "What say you?" With a hesitant nod, Simon moved closer, and they entered the dimly lit room. The air was thick, almost tangible with anxiety. Poirot observed the disarray, the overturned chairs, the remnants of a struggle that had taken place, and a faint smell of cigar smoke lingering like a ghost of conversation long past. "Simon, tell me, what was it that your uncle discussed regarding Margaret?" Poirot's tone was serious as he studied Simon's reaction, his mouth twisted with regret. He spoke of her folly, of how she would ruin the family's name, how she needed to learn her place. Poirot locked eyes with Simon, who flinched as if struck by an unspoken realization. But it was not solely a matter of pride, no? The Wentworths are laden with shadows that run deeper than mere vanity. Outside, a bolt of lightning illuminated the room momentarily, casting elongated shadows that danced mockingly upon the walls. Poirot honored the chaos unfolding outside, recognizing it as reflection of the turmoil within. "Margaret," he said, pivoting towards her, who stood at the threshold, her countenance pale, yet defiant. "What do you know of these threats? Surely you, too, felt the intensity of that argument?" Margaret's eyes glinted with a mix of resolve and terror. "Lord Wentworth was ruthless, yes. He loomed over our lives, suffocating us. But I had nothing to do with his death." Her voice quivered, but there was a fierceness beneath her words, a rage bottled up for far too long. Poirot nodded, considering her carefully. The tumult in the room deepened, the power of their hidden grievances surging like the storm outside. It suddenly struck him. There was an imbalance of power here, one that was more than familial conflict. He turned back towards the broken door, wrapped in thought. "You each carry a fragment of pain, yet you are connected through this tragic web. Someone here desires to step beyond this threshold of oppression. Reflect upon it, mes amis." With that, he returned to the main drawing room, key and parchment in hand. If only this key could unlock not a door, but the memories too long held shackled, he mused, folding the letter neatly. A glint of determination settled in his eyes as he delved deep into the implications, piecing together fragments, unraveling lies as if it were an intricate tapestry. The letter had spoken of a hidden chamber, a place at Thornbridge, known only to select members of the Wentworth bloodline. "Secrets kept too long can prove to be the most dangerous," he asserted. "And yet, shadows of privilege cloak the truth from those who seek it most fervently." His gaze returned to the assembled group, now starkly centered among them. "Who amongst you would deem freedom worth the direst price?" Eleanor gasped, her hands gripping the chair beside her. "What do you mean?" Jealousy and desperation often breed more than mere compulsion. They can inspire actions born of necessity, a liberation sought at the cost of conscience. Poirot began, his voice resonating with an unsettling clarity. The killer would be one who harbored festering resentment and dreamed of a life unencumbered by the weight of legacy. With maddening tension, the words hung in the air as the realization struck a cold chord. Their eyes darted between each other, seeking the truth that resonated deeper with the storm brewing outside. Poirot's gaze fixated on the fireplace, where the flickering shadows delineated old memories and fears. A jealous heart can harbor intentions darker than imagined. I do believe there lies someone among us who would be willing to do anything to liberate themselves, and I suspect they are as familiar with the secrets of Thornbridge as the walls they dwell within. Suddenly, the house shrouded again in darkness as the lightning illuminated a figure at the periphery of the room. Everyone turned in unison, breathless, and Poirot stepped forward, eyes narrowed, as the silence felt almost suffocating. Perhaps it is time we brought forth not just the living secrets, but also the one who stands quietly among us, concealing their guilt behind a charming facade, he intoned, unleashing the storm. Within, a moment of revelation shrouded in suspense. With a twist of fate, he called forth, "Margaret, you see, the key would lead us to a hidden door, yes, which some here have long known of. But your emotions betray you now." As the words dropped, the storm roared once more, the lights flickered back with alarming intensity, and Poirot, unwavering, was ready to unveil the monster among them. For the revelation awaited like a dark shadow, poised to emerge from behind closed doors, revealing the bitter truth both feared and sought after in the chambers of Thornbridge Manor.